a lot of the previous videos that I've made, I talk about the timeline method and creating a timeline. So what you can do, this is just a suggestion of something you could try. If you can imagine a timeline, so we can date our timeline back to 0, which is then birth, or you can go to minus point, what's it, 9/12 is, we're gonna look at those, probably like about 75%. So you can take about that point just before 0 and say, okay, well, this is going to be just before 1 year, kind of like 9/12 multiplied by 1 year. Before 0, that's when conception happened, and then at that point you would find that, okay, there's maybe a little bit of a space because you're in limbo, or you're wanting to come back into this life, and then you could have like, there's a timeline that goes before that. I just put up to 50 because reasons. Okay, so what you can then do is you can take the timeline, and then what you do is you then create a timeline for a previous life, and you say, okay, well, I want to move this person to a separate timeline, so I'm going to move them to that point, and then take them to a different timeline. So I now jump over from this timeline into a timeline for the previous life. And it would be interesting to look at the timeline, see how long it is, go to specific ages on that timeline, or see maybe, okay, well, what was the person like when they grew up, like what was the time then, and kind of the middle of life or end of life. Okay, well, what happened? And you can also then look on your reading screen what happens with the person over this time, so you can play the story back. So instead of your own life passing before your eyes, you can see somebody else's previous life pass before your eyes. Probably be a lot less dramatic or spectacular, but at least you can then have a tool that would bring you into that section. Okay, so if we want to then move beyond that point and see, okay, well, what happened before that, we can then do the same again. We can hop over from that past life, and then we can say, I want to go back another past life, and then create another timeline, and I'm going to have the intention that timeline is then for that previous past life. Remember, I say this a lot, and I repeat it because it's important, is that our intention and imagination are the two biggest tools for intuitive work. This is something that is also great for meditation, for just general life. If you have the intention of what you want and something that you want to happen, and then you use your imagination to form it, you start to get a clear idea of how it's going to be. And when you have a clear idea of how it's going to be, if you want it in your own life, then you're going to attach the emotion to it and the feeling to it and the joy of getting it, etc., etc., and then that will basically help you get it. But for this kind of a movement here, what we want to do is we want to set our intention on creating a timeline. Our intention is that we're going to move the person onto a different timeline. We're going to explore it on our reading screens. We want to see what happens with the person. We want to move to different points on the timeline. Before, what I said is that I like to move to specific ages to see certain things. And what you could do is you could say, I want to go to the point where this life was most relevant to this one. So, okay, the present life, what is the event in the previous life that I can go to that is most relevant to this life now? And then I can go and say, oh, okay, fine, I kind of felt that, you were in a violent struggle, and I like, for now, I see a knife, and then also like shooting. So there could be a possibility that there's, probably a knife fight, and somebody pulled out a gun and shot someone in this building where I am, that actually happened. So that could be that I'm picking up on something like that. So this could be a point of relevance of that life, and someone could really have, like, I pick up the left side of my head, they could actually have like some kind of a headache or something because there's some association to a past life. If you want to go into a healing for that, you can then heal that event, so that event doesn't like follow them to this life, in a sense where it doesn't then cause the headache. But they can still get the dreams about it, or so. They just don't want the headache. They're reminded of it. They know now, and then we go forward from that point on. But like I was saying, this is just another tool. There's another way that you can do this. So I give you different ways to try and approach this, and you can try them out for yourself, see what works and what doesn't work. Advice is always the same, where advice is really worthless generally. And the only thing that makes advice really worth anything is that if you start to try it out for yourself and change it in a way where it starts to suit you. So you can take these ideas that I have. If you find that, okay, well, you have a brick wall instead of a paper wall, and you can reconstruct it, or you build a door into it and the door opens, or you can have doors that lead to the past, or you can have like a basement and you can have a basement to the basement, and you can have different levels of a building. You can have like a multi-story building. So you can have any of these things that you can then imagine. This is just a starting point to give you an idea, but it's really about you and how you perceive things. So this is just to kind of get you going on what could be possible. And then if you find that this is not for you and you find a different way that suits you better, well, absolutely fantastic. And then that is really what you want. You want to own this and make it your own. So I really encourage people to find their own way and their own methods and their own tools that they can use on their reading screens, and really build that up for yourself. That's the point where you stop going from a novice and you start to become more of a seasoned reader. Is where you start to find your own way. And it's nice to have like solid tools like these, because if you struggle later on, you can use the tools, and that tool will just give you that solid foundation of doing something that makes sense to you, that you understand, and then you can be reminded of what works for you, and you can go to that.